I'm going to pick up right where we left off in understanding a Cisco voice network part 2. In the last nugget, I left off talking about the applications and call processing devices you can have on the voice network, but there was one layer that we left off in the Cisco voice infrastructure model, and that was the endpoints. There's so many of them that we needed a nugget of its own just to talk about them all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the different endpoints. I'm going to go brief. I'm not going to dive into all the features and all that, but give you an idea of what's out there. And then I think the most important point of this whole nugget is going to be right at the very end, where I talk about, at least for the first time, the Cisco IP phone startup process. It's a process I'll go through again and again and again as we go through these different nuggets in this series, because it's so critical to your understanding not only of how to troubleshoot phones if they don't boot up right, but also of all the pieces that have to be in place to have a working voice over IP network. Well, let's start off with the entry-level Cisco IP phones that you would find, typically in a break room or lobby area, and it could be somebody's desk phone. It's just normally the desk phones get more lines, more features, that kind of thing. First off, you see the 7906 and 7911. That's right here. They look identical when you look at them. You can't tell the difference unless you flip them around on the back side. The 7906 only has one incoming Ethernet port from the wall, and that's the end of that Ethernet jack, whereas the 7911 has a built-in switch where you can actually attach an outgoing computer to. So you can connect a computer to the phone and not have to run two Ethernet jacks to every single cubicle. Now, this is a single line phone. It supports text-based XML applications. And that's something you'll see all the time as we go through the phones is XML application support. XML stands for Extended Markup Language. This is kind of the new programming language of the internet, if you will, and it's a way to support all kinds of programming features through tags. It's very similar to HTML code, if you've seen that before, but a lot more features. So XML applications allows you to expand these phones to put custom applications like maybe a corporate directory or a time clock on there, or like in a hotel you could check in and check out from the phone. All those kinds of things are XML based. So good all around low cost phone. 7931, this is one of the newest phones to the lineup. It's right here. This is one with 24 lines. Now, the reason I say this is part of the entry-level Cisco IP phones is because it's primarily meant for retail centers and commercial environments, to where you have a receptionist that has the 24 lines and she's directing calls to wherever they go, or everybody's got the same phones and they're seeing all the lines on all of them. Kind of a key switch sort of phones. Again, text-based XML applications, meaning the display doesn't support graphics but text. It has a built-in switch, and it initially, as of the time I'm recording this, only supports Call Manager 6.0, which is the Linux appliance, and Call Manager Express. It'll probably expand out to, or Communication Manager Express. I've got to wash my brain of Call Manager, but you know what? Tell you what, for the rest of this series, if I say Call Manager, in your mind, think Communication Manager, because they're the same thing. So those are the initial support. Now, I'll put honorable mention down here. They don't make these anymore, but I'd say they make great lab phones because they're cheap. It's the Cisco 7902 and 7910. The 7902 looks identical to this guy up here, except does not have a display. It is one of the only Cisco IP phones that is displayless. This is actually, you remember the phones that have the piece of paper under there where you can write like emergency numbers and things like that? That's what that is. So it's cheap. Brand new from Cisco is less than $100. So I'm thinking eBay price, it's probably pretty good and makes a great lab phone. This is actually a phone that was acquired by Cisco. When they initially got into voice over IP, they acquired a company called Celsius, spelled with an S. And this was one of their phones that they had. It was it was a phone, and it did its job. It didn't have many features. Again, great lab phone, not made anymore. We can now move into the mid-range and upper-end phones, which I would call the flagship phones of Cisco, meaning you'll probably see more of these than any other model out there. It's the Cisco 7904X or 7940 and 7960 IP phones that you see right here. Now, the 7940 and 60, the primary difference is this one has 2 lines, up to 2 lines support, and this one has up to 6 lines. Now, you'll know how many lines a Cisco IP phone supports just by looking at the side right here. These buttons show 2 buttons, that's 2 lines. This one supports up to 6 lines. Now, you see all these different models, 7960, or sorry, 40, 41, 41GE, and 42. Now, these are all 2-line phones. They support full XML applications, meaning the display supports graphics. So you'll get graphics, you'll get buttons, you'll get all kinds of things on the phone. But keep in mind that these models of Cisco phones are not touchscreen. There are even some upper-end models further than this that are touchscreen applications. Both of these have a built-in switch. Now, here's the different models. 7940 and 7960 is the classic, meaning when I first got into Cisco IP phones, these were one of the first ones that was released. They're still probably the most popular ones that are out there. They're the oldest ones. The 7941 is the same thing, except it's got better resolution on the screen, and you'll be able to tell. It's not like, oh yeah, it kind of looks better. I mean, you'll see the 40 and the 41 side by side, and you go, wow, the 41 is crisp. Also, they put a backlight on the display, which was very handy because they found out that people that were working in dimly lit environments, which IT people usually do, can't see the phone. Because the phone was too, you can't see this graphic without a little light behind it. So the 41 added a backlit display. The 41GE takes all the features of the 41, meaning better resolution backlit display, and adds a gigabit Ethernet switch in the back. So if you need gigabit to the desktop, you can plug in your computer at a gigabit connection. The 42 support, whenever you see these model numbers, it usually supports all the lower level features, but this one adds support for high fidelity audio. Meaning that with voice over IP, we have the ability to get better audio quality than we did in the old voice world, because we can use more than 64 kilobits per second of bandwidth if you want. So the 42 takes advantage of that, and when you hear speech over the 42, I mean, you can normally tell when somebody's talking over the phone. Like if you listen to the radio, the telephone caller always has a telephone sound to them. If you go with a 42, that goes away, meaning the phone sound goes away. You get the full fidelity of a voice call. Moving into the 7960, you get 6-line phones with all these models having exactly the same features as the 4X phones. Now, continuing on our list of phones, I put the 7945 and 7965 on their own slide because I thought they deserved it. The 7945 and 65 are a full color display phone. So it's the same features as the 42 and 62, meaning high fidelity audio, integrated gigabit switch, all of those features. But now you can see we've got, this is a 45 because you've got the 2 lines, a high resolution color display. When you move into the Cisco 7970 series or 7X series, you move up to an 8-line touchscreen full color display phone. Oh, moment of silence, please. Very good. This is a phone that allows you, literally, I have one sitting right next to me. It's awesome. You push the screen and it works. It's a touch screen phone. It's full color. I have the 7970 because I bought one early on before the 71 gigabit Ethernet and the 75. Another moment of silence. Because the 75 has a massive 5.6-inch display screen, which these other ones are about 5 point something inches. So it's not like, whoa, but it's whoa. I mean, it's big. When you look at it, you can say that's a big display, which gives you more graphics capabilities. As XML applications get more and more popular, you're going to see some pretty cool applications able to use the features of that massive 16-bit color screen. Now, did I mention? Yes, 8 lines. 8 lines as well. So we move from 2 lines to 6 lines to 8 lines when we move into the 7970s. Now, I know many of you were thinking when you were looking at those color IP phones, why don't they put a video camera in there and do video over IP on the phone? Well, early on they did in some of the trials. They put cameras in those phones, because you can get webcams that are very small. I think they even, well, they do. They integrate them into laptops nowadays, right in the lid of the laptop, right above the LCD display. But the problem is, I mean, look at the desk beside you if you're sitting at a desk. What level is the phone at? It's kind of, if you're sitting at a desk, it's probably about at your chest level. Well, when they put a camera into that and angle it up, you're going to get a view up your nose. And that's what they found, is when people sit normally at a desk, if you have a small phone there, you're not going to get a very flattering view, and everybody's going to disable the video as soon as they see what kind of angle they get, verifying nose hairs on people as they're using video. So you can see this 7985 has a little extension right here. It's a single line phone because it's primarily geared towards video, but this extension allows you to stretch the video camera higher to where you'll get the look of somebody, without the wrong angle. So basic phone features. This is not a fancy phone. This is primarily geared for the wow factor, to give you video on your calls. Now I can see as the technology goes on and on and on, we're eventually going to get to a point where video is in everything. But as of right now, businesses aren't really paying for it. Meaning, video is a cool factor. It's like a wow. Now that's pretty cool. But they're finding, number one, that there's not much business return on investment for video. Now, this is outside of the massive video conference systems that Cisco has. There's even, oh man, hang on, I'm going to pause the video and show this to you. Okay, I found it. Check this out. This is actually, if you look at, sorry, let me scoot this over. This is actually the URL for this, where musion.co.uk. If you go there, if you check this out, they actually have a video. This is John Chambers, where, watch this. I know you can't hear it, but he's actually talking to, you see that? You see that? That's holograms. Holograms! People are walking onto the stage that aren't really there, and they are actually demonstrating Musion's new hologram system, to where you can actually communicate with people and see them as if they're not really there. So, sorry, forgive me, I had to digress into that. So video is eventually going to get there, and it's going to be everywhere. Who knows? Are we going to start seeing holograms of our relatives walking through our home after we make calls to them? I hope not. But, eventually we're going to see video telephony all over the place, but there's no real business need for it. It's cool. That's about it. It's very cool to be able to see someone. Okay, the hologram thing, maybe a business. No, it's cool. That's really cool. But nobody's really going to make a $100,000+ investment for video telephony, when what they found is when they just started deploying video telephony all over the place, most people muted their video, meaning they don't want people to see them when they make a call. Think about it. Would you do any different? I mean, you're having the bad hair day, or if you're like me, you look in the mirror in the morning, you go, I'm having a no hair day right now, like where you can see through your hair. That's primarily, I guess, my own problem. But where you don't want people to see you, or you fidget when you're on the phone, or you look away, you look distracted. Well, if somebody's seeing you on video, they're going to know you don't have their full attention. And likewise, if you see them and you're talking to them and they're checking their email while you're talking, it just makes for an awkward sort of conversation, or one that you have to be much more focused on than you typically are. So video will get there. I'm not saying, it's not going to happen. It will. There will be everywhere, but it'll probably be one of those things to where Cisco starts integrated into all the phones. It's just like a bonus edition on there that you get when you buy their phone. And once everybody has it, then maybe you'll start seeing it evolving more and more. Either that, or you start seeing holograms on people's desk. Who knows? After seeing that Musion video, I was pretty psyched out about what the possibilities are going to be. Whew, holograms. Star Trek truly is upon us. Before long, we're going to walk around with those little, you remember in Star Trek, those little things they carried around, they're like, bloop, and like it was like a little orb, like circle, okay, where's my pen? Where they had like the little circle things they have in their hand, and the person would be like, and they would appear right there and be talking, and they go, and go back in the little orb in their hand. It's going to happen. So other endpoint devices. We've got the 7936, which is this guy. a Polycom-like conference solution. It's actually made by Polycom, adopted for Cisco. This is a backlit LCD display that it supports. It has external microphone support, so you can plug in other microphones. And these little alien spaceships you see on the conference desks just allow you to have a conference call with many people, and it picks up all their audio. Now the 7937, that's the next generation. There's actually even a 7935, same thing as this, no backlit display, no external flat microphone support. So you can see as they evolve, they're getting better and better. This one has a backlit display and comes with external microphones that you can stretch, and external speakers that you can stretch all around the conference room. It also supports the high fidelity audio like the 7940. 42, 45, those models, and 62, 65. So you can get the extremely high quality audio, which in a conference room makes a lot more sense. Then you see the Cisco ATA devices. These, they're actually pretty small. I know it looks a little bigger here, but I would say, about 7 inches? 7 inches width-wise, about 5 or so inches in depth. They're pretty small. What these are is just a dual FXS port. If you turn this around on the back, the ATA 186 has an Ethernet port and then has 2 FXS ports that allow you to plug in analog devices. This could be like a Walmart phone, it could be a fax machine, something that you want to make into a voice over IP device. That's what this little box does. It adapts them. It has actually digital signal processors inside that do the work of doing that. The ATA 188, the only difference is it has a built-in switch, so you can then plug in a computer into this, so wherever you put this device, it doesn't eat up the Ethernet port in that location. Now the other endpoint devices is where the technology really can go further, because this is where we're going to start seeing all the new stuff coming out, like the Cisco IP Communicator. This is Cisco's now version of the soft phone. Early on, they actually had something they called the Cisco IP soft phone. It was their first attempt. That's all I'll say. It was hokey. It was a Java-ish kind of application where you could actually, drag buttons off the phone and they'd fall off. It was really weird. So the Cisco IP Communicator was awesome, an awesome addition, because this is a 7970, just exactly like the color phone, on the screen of your PC. I put enough said, because that's all it is. It's got the 8 lines, got the color display. Notice no handset, because you can actually plug in a headset to the PC and that's your phone. They even sell, you can just go on Google and find them, USB handsets to where you can have a phone. Like it's just a what am I looking for? I'm looking for those those cheap analog phones you have that are just like the handset in a little. Oh, hang on one second. Okay, here we go. Once I get something in my head, I just can't let it go. Like one of these guys. This is actually a USB handset. That's what one of them looks like. There's many of them out there, and they're cheap. And you just plug this in, draw a little cable here, into your USB port, and that gives you the convenience of a phone, because sometimes people don't want to put a headset on every time they answer the phone. It gives you a convenience of having a phone, but still allows you to use one of these soft phones like you see on the screen right here. So that's also an option for you. You've got the Cisco Unified Personal Communicator. This is awesome. This is where we truly start to see all the benefits of running a voice system over a data network come to fruition. What this is an ultimate multi-platform all-in-one client. It honestly looks, that's what it looks like. It looks like an instant messenger. But instead of seeing like little, friends and buddy lists and things like that, you actually see the corporate directory. And if I could zoom in here, you would see the status of every device in the corporate directory, if you allow people to see that. If a phone is on hook, if a phone is unplugged, if they're busy on the phone at the time, you can just look and see what the status of somebody is. Kind of like an instant messenger. You know how it says away or just returned or busy or something like that. You can see everybody. Now when you double click on them, you can get the option of instant messaging them, document sharing. You can have it pop up in a soft phone or pop up and automatically dial them on your hard phone and just lift up the handset. It integrates with Outlook to where you can just drag and drop contacts onto there. It'll dial them. You get video telephony where you can have a video call using, this is the Cisco VT Advantage. I'm trying to think. My mind went blank. VT Advantage video solution that you can add in there to get video telephony. It's kind of the ultimate communication center. Speaking of the VT Advantage, that is yet another other endpoint device option that you can add onto your network, which grants you video telephony for any Cisco IP phone. What the VT Advantage does is synchronize with the IP phone that's sitting on the desk. So for example, I could have it linked up to this Cisco IP phone. When I make a call, it automatically detects if the other side supports video and automatically pops up the video on the screen, so I can make video calls without saying, oh, hang on, let me turn on my video and all that kind of stuff. It just automatically does it to you. It also synchronizes the voice and video when you're talking on there, which is handy. You don't want to look like a bad Chinese dub when you're a Chinese dub movie when you're talking on a Cisco IP phone. So your voice and video is synchronized. It's a smooth conversation. When you do things like hit the mute button on the phone to mute your audio, it also freezes your video. So it's very synchronized between the phone and the webcam that you can see the camera edition right there. Yeah, that's the Video Advantage. I should mention that VT Advantage is tied to this webcam. It's not like software that works with any webcam. When you buy a VT Advantage kit, it comes in a box and it has the webcam, it has the software all in this box. So it only works with that webcam. So that's one consideration. You've got the 7914, 15, 16. There's actually many of them. Different expansion modules. These are add-on modules for the 7960, 61, 70, 71, all those kind of things. Now, as you move up in the expansion module list, this was the original. The 7915 and 16, you'll get features like color. You'll get lit buttons on there. The color one matches the color phone, so you don't have these strange mismatch between this kind of greenish tinge display and a full color IP phone. So you can add up to 2 of these modules for each phone, which gives you an additional 14 line buttons. So this is very good for a receptionist who has to manage and direct many calls that are coming in and out. Now keep in mind, when you plug this in, it eliminates your inline power capabilities. The phone now requires a plug that goes to the wall. So inline power can power the phone from the Ethernet jack. And that's one of the things we'll talk about as we get deeper into the network infrastructure. Adding on too many things to the phone increases the power requirements beyond the power over Ethernet capabilities. Down here you see the VG224, and there's also a VG248 analog gateway. What this does is, those of you from the old PBX world will remember this. I shouldn't say old PBX world. We'll say the the other telephony world will recognize this port. It's an Amphenol connector. What you do is you actually run this connector to a punch-down block, which you would then punch down 24 individual, and it's actually FXS, technically, ports, where I can attach 24 different analog devices, or if you have the VG248, it has 2 Amphenol connectors where you can plug up to 48 analog devices into a system and convert them to voice over IP. Now, the reason these are handy is because there are also devices that have direct Amphenol connectors. For example, you might have a legacy voicemail system from the legacy telephony world that you have an Amphenol connector on, and you can actually trunk it into the new voice over IP network by adding in one of these devices. Now that's pretty cool, because that way you don't have to buy Unity. You can just use your existing voicemail system with the new voice over IP network and just tie them together through their Amphenol connectors, or run them to a punch down block and punch them down that way through however many ports you want to bring over to them. Lastly, we have the Cisco 7920 and 21 wireless, or I guess you could say cordless phones that use 802.11 technology for wireless communication. These phones, first off, the 7920 is the older one. It has actually been replaced by the 7921. Well, I think you can still buy the 7920, but 21 is where everybody's going, because the 20 actually had a lot of problems. There was a lot of battery issues. If you dropped them or looked at them wrong, they stopped working. So the 7921 added a lot of features and a lot more stable phone. This uses the wireless network to support voice over IP calls. The older phone, supported text-based XML applications. The newer phone has a color display, gives you better XML support. Features like push-to-talk, you've seen those walkie-talkie type phones that are out there. Longer battery life, and a speakerphone. Now, these are phones that you can't just throw out there and say, oh, great, we now have wireless phones, because you have to think about wireless quality of service, which is a whole nother consideration. Wireless networks are like hubs. Really. I mean, when you're looking at wireless communication, it's like hub-based communication, where you're really taking a step back from a wired connection, because only one person on the access point can transmit at a time. There's no collision detection mechanism. So you do have to consider wireless quality of service. Otherwise, these phones will end up with very poor quality when they're trying to talk. Also, you have to think about roaming, because normally when you move from access point to access point, you lose your connection for a brief second while it reassociates. Well, if you're on a phone call, that's not good. So you want to make sure you set up roaming capability so the phone can roam between access points. Down here you see the Cisco Mobile Communicator and GSM. This is a feature that allows you to integrate into specific models of cell phones voice over IP functions. So literally, as you come into the business, you get your desk extension. As you leave the business, your desk extension follows you around, and some people are like, I will never have a Cisco Mobile Communicator phone. So this allows you to really take your work with you, as it's like you took your desk extension and strapped it to your hip. It gives you access to the voice over IP resources like the corporate directory, voicemail, the status of people on the different phones, and all those kind of things. And some of the phones, I think Nokia just came out with one, integrate directly to where you don't need to buy Cisco Mobile Communicator. It's partnered with Cisco to where you can actually use Communication Manager to manage and integrate that cell phone without any special requirements. Whew, enough endpoints. Are you with me on that? I feel like a Cisco marketing guy. That is to give you a good idea of what's out there, what kind of devices you can plug in as an endpoint. Now, I can tell you that the minute I finished recording that, something else probably came out. There are so many new things coming out in voice over IP that I cannot keep up, and I usually keep on top of this stuff. I mean, week by week by week, there's just new things coming out all the time because it's such a new industry. So many new cool things are coming out to support that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this nugget is actually the most important. I saved the best for last. That is the Cisco IP phone startup process. We've talked about these endpoints. We've talked about, them integrating into the network and their features, but how do they start up and communicate with the Cisco Call Manager? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through this list and explain them one by one as I go, with the intention to expand on this in the future. So as we go through this series, I'm going to keep adding things and expanding on what is a voice VLAN and what is a option 150 and things like that. I'll expand on that as we go. This is just initially where I want you to see the base process, and then we'll start getting into the network infrastructure. So you've got your Cisco IP phone. We'll say it's a 7971. You plug that into the network. If you have a power over Ethernet switch, the switch will detect an unpowered device. It'll send a little tone, loop back around, and say, oh, you're unpowered. Let me send some electricity down the wire. So the phone lights up. The Cisco IP phones go into what I call Christmas tree mode, because you'll start seeing all the lights. It's almost like a power on self-test. All the lights will start blinking on the phone. It's going through a little test process. The phone will then find its internal firmware software image and boot that up, which tells it you are a phone and you need to start getting an address. So the switch will then send voice VLAN. I'll just put VLAN information to the phone to let the phone know what VLAN it's on using CDP. Now again, I'll expand on that later, but that's our Cisco Discovery Protocol. Cisco modified the discovery protocol to actually do more than just monitor and see what's plugged in. It sends a CDP packet to the phone and says, hey phone, here's your VLAN, and this is what VLAN you're on. So the phone gets that and says, great, I know what VLAN I'm on, so now I'll send a DHCP request. It's just like a data device, so that now goes over to the DHCP server, and the DHCP server says, oh great, let me give you an IP address. Now, in addition to giving the phone the normal stuff, an IP address, a subnet mask, a default gateway, DNS stuff, all of the normal stuff DHCP supplies, it also gives something known as option 150, aka TFTP information. It tells the phone the IP address of the TFTP server that it will use during the boot process. So the phone now gets its IP address, is like, oh great, I've got my address, I can now excuse me, my throat is drying out. I can now communicate on the network. Let me communicate and contact the TFTP server. Now it's contacting the TFTP server because it knows the TFTP server has on it a configuration file. The call manager, communication manager, sends over a configuration file for that phone to say, here's what its phone number is, or its line number is. This is, what MAC address this phone will come in as, and so on. So the phone goes up to the TFTP server and says, send me the configuration file. TFTP server complies and says, here's your configuration file. And inside of there, if we were to look at that config file that's sent over from the TFTP server, one of the items on that list would be the IP address of the communication manager server, or the router if you're running Call Manager Express, or the UC500. So the phone goes, great, I'll go over there. So the phone contacts the first Call Manager server listed in that configuration file and registers, therefore getting an extension, getting dial tone, and all of that. That is the boot process that all these phones go through. Now, that is, I will say, a base level explanation that as we get into the upcoming nuggets, I'm going to expand on each one of those. Like, for instance, why does the phone need to know what VLAN it's on? Why? I never thought of that. I mean, the computers, they plug into the switch. Do they know what VLAN they're on? No way. Why does a phone need to know? Why is it special? So we'll expand on all those kinds of questions as we go. I just want you to get the base feel for this boot process. And there is the components of a Cisco voice over IP network. In the previous nugget, we saw the call processing devices and the applications. In this nugget, we looked at the endpoints and more endpoints. From the entry level down at the 7906 and 7911, up to the 7985 video telephony, to the future hologram components. All these different devices offer unique features like touchscreen, number of lines, video telephony, high fidelity audio, conference capabilities, all those kinds of things. Each one of them has a unique niche that it fills in a voice network. Now, of course, most important, we wrapped up this video by talking about the startup process of a Cisco IP phone. Hang on to that one, because we're going to keep hitting that one as we go. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.